Hold on, here we go. I'm sorry. I had to get the mic, get everything queued up. I am here. I am here. Dedication to the space, to us, to the evolution of who we are and what we bring to the table. Are y'all in the building? Are y'all in the building? Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Pull this hair up for a minute here. Yes, yes. Happy Thursday. What's going on? What's going on? I know that people are in the building ready to turn up. You know, I'm here to tell you guys, I appreciate you. We love you so much. And I'm here to tell you too that I have some amazing shows that I'm working on scheduling guests. We're have guests that we're going to have guests that appear or possibly could be on larger platforms, but we get to have them intimately in this very advanced community. I consider the expanded consciousness community that is vibrating this frequency. I consider you guys advanced individuals ready to take on the world and being able to introduce some products and some things and some objectives and some uh, uh, concepts, if you will, that are some of them are not for the faint of heart, because it can go, we can go out there, but at the same time, when you're ready for it, you're ready for it. I want to see who's in the building. I didn't even get Instagram going. Mr. Christopher, everybody give a warm applause for Christopher, who wins the award for always being the first person in the room. Whoop, 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 whoop. Oh, man, we appreciate you, brother. God do. I appreciate you. So we got to recognize the family that's in the room, that's in the space, because you know what? I'll just be in here all by myself. So we appreciate it. I'm going to make sure I get my little Instagram fired up here. Run it differently. Everybody, there's Miss Santa. She's in the room. She's always contributing. Thank you so much. You are a light to this space. So much so. And guys, don't forget 100% to like and share this post, because this is going to be cool. This is going to be amazing. Everybody on Instagram, I'm going to let you know we're talking about healing manifestation. That is healing or manifesting healing. It's going to be beautiful. I got some things queued up here. Make sure these lovely folks here understand what's going on Instagram. All right, here we go. Go and bust through this list real quick. Miss Marie, we love you. We love you so much. Thank you for joining us, Miss Deidre. Miss Lee, we definitely need to get it on schedule. Miss Gloria, you're the same. Need to get that scheduled up so that we can actually connect. You guys have to check her out. She is also a coach, and she's really got some amazing things that she does. So she's on social media. I am a person that loves to share good people, good things. Bishop was like that. And so we appreciate it. Mother White, greetings. Thank you so much for coming through. Miss Jacqueline Lyons. Oh, thank you so much. You say all is well. It sure does look all is well in that picture. And I guess we probably need a drum roll here for JT, John Thomas. He's in the space in the room. It's really interesting because we end up having more people. It's like a lot more people coming in on YouTube, which is quite interesting. And so, and we have here everybody that's on IG. We have quite a few people here, looks like, on Instagram. Instagram is kind of interesting. You guys don't stick around as long as Facebook and YouTube. And a lot of times I think that's because you don't get to watch it on your television like a lot of other people get to watch this on their television. And so therefore it's a little different. So we're going to get right to this, right? What do you understand? I want you to everyone to kind of get into a space right now to one set intention. I don't know if you ever heard of that. So in churches, what they do is they have this thing called Mr. Distinguished. I see you there, CJ, my brother from so many years ago. I love you dearly. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Miss Rose Hyatt on Facebook. I believe we're scheduled to get together tomorrow. She is a wonderful, lovely person. She has a beautiful, amazing story. She was born and raised as a Mormon, and she has a heck of a story. Um, but when it comes to the topic of this evening, one is I said the journey continues. The journey continues. So we want to set intention. I'm not sure if you have, this is something I've been working with a few clients on, and that is understanding that no matter what, it's like some of the sacred things we had in life, we seem to, in the modern day life, we seem to remove some of the sacred practices. So, what do I mean by sacred practice? If you have, I had a daughter that just graduated high school. So, the way that there has a commencement, there is a whole process that everyone that's on this know is like you have raised a kid, took them to school, now they're driving, now they're 18, now they're, are at an age where you put all that labor and all that work and all that time into doing your best to nurture these kids that you may have. And in that process, right, there's a lot you go through. So when it comes to graduation, there's a sacredness, there's something special, there's something that touches your soul, possibly. There's something that touches the individual soul that has gone through all that and the sacred practice where you have graduation announcements and you have all the little things that you do, that the pomps and circumstances, a song we would play. And so you would do all these things as a sacred practice, honoring the parents and honoring the person that is graduating, right? So I want you guys to always understand the accomplishment, great accomplishment, Miss Marie, as you say that, the accomplishment of you showing up tonight, because this is not necessarily about me. I'm looking for some chargers. This is not necessarily about me. This is about we. And more importantly to me, this is about you. Understand, this is about us, but you're right now alone or you're probably with someone, but this is about focusing on you at this moment, right? And not only that, of course, we know we have people in the room. So if you see someone you know in the room, if you see someone you've spoken to in the room, or you see someone you want to introduce yourself, make sure you understand this is a community um, that is more than just me, myself. So, um, but the sacred practices of coming to a point of saying, you know what, I'm here to sir, I'm here to set intention and what I want to receive for me as me, right? So I'm gonna set that intention. And sometime before I go to bed, I wanted to let you guys know this real quick because I think it's important that people start doing this. And before you go to bed, develop a practice and make that practice sacred, right? Kind of writing, writing about this, and the thing is like the sacred practice of you um, letting the day go, right? And preparing for bed. Because what you don't know is almost like you a part of you is going to sleep. A part of you is like dormant. Your you a part of who you are is right going into stages of realm and beta and theta, delta. Like you're going into stages of and the frequencies of consciousness, right? And so there's things that happen in that state. There are things that happen to who you are in that state of being. And there's things that you need to do as a human being. Although you could stay awake for so long, what's interesting, I'll tell you, is that you could stay awake for only so long. You could deal without food, possibly. You could deal without food, and you can deal without even drinking, possibly longer than you can deal without bringing your brain into a state of rest. Otherwise, that's when you begin to hallucinate, body chemistry takes over, and so on and so forth. And so, what you do is I want everyone that's listening to me as we do this group coaching, is what I call this, is understand that we can go into a state of being grateful every day before bed. You're going to tell yourself, I'm washing off the day, and I'm going to be grateful for this day, the things that I know I accomplished and the things that I know I can improve. And before you get to bed, you can also begin to talk to yourself about the things you want to accomplish the next day. It's good to write these things down. Get into a habit. Get into a habit of closing out the day sacredly. Get into a habit of actually pushing everything back in terms of you can just sit there on the edge of your bed and take a few breaths and just say thank you. Thank you. Thank you, body. Thank you, mind. Thank you, spirit. As I close out this day, thank you. Thank you. I promise you, as you do this, see, a lot of healing, and I say manifesting it, is because it begins to unfold and happen. And we're going to go through some things this evening, some videos and people that you would never probably come across, maybe some that you would, but for the most part, a lot of things attract me and come to me, and I do a lot of research. And so we're going to talk about manifesting healing. The journey continues, manifesting healing. We're all on this journey. All right. We're all on the journey. Once you realize you're on a journey, there is no specific destination, but there are milestones. Anybody know what milestones are? Right? You're working on a big project, and the milestone is XYZ, right? If you're building a house, you got to get the foundation done, but you got to get plans. Everybody follow me? You got to get plans first. And then it is a milestone whenever you get that first truck out there, right? And that first truck out there is moving to begin to do the digging. And after you do the digging, you got to get the concrete guys out there, right? And that was before anybody that did the engineering. So we have civil engineering involved, possibly depending on how big the project is. This is what I do on my daily basis, right? I'm a consultant, and I have people from medical to oil and gas to housing, concrete, construction, electrical. I've done a lot, but anyways, it's a whole process in order to get something built. And each stage, right, you building up on the main goal. We're not setting enough goals in our life, right? And we're not looking into our lives as we want to manifest something, but then there's this not just the action alone. They talk about faith. It's not just the action alone. The mindset also is more important to me than even that process, right? You got to get your mind into a state of receiving. You got to get your mind into a state of understanding, a state of self-love. You got to get the more you can get your mind into that realization and understanding, the manifestation of life and things that can happen will unfold before you. Okay. And we're going to get deep into some conversation, right? With understanding some states of consciousness. Then we're moving into understanding healing, right? Being able to be healed or healing ourselves and things unfolding. Miss Marie, I see you. I see you. My last night in our family home, putting mom house on the market. That, listen, that is a major milestone. I've worked and we've had a conversation, and it is a big thing for Miss Marie, guys, that she's at this space. Her mother has passed. She has siblings that are involved, and she has been invested in her soul into this home, and but realizing and understand what has to take place in her life, right? There's a lot of closing out, I believe she had to do. There's a lot of reconciliation that she had to do. There's a lot of pain, but I'll tell you, I want to congratulate you. I want to congratulate you for understanding, realizing, and connecting to and accepting that not even a family home can keep you from healing in your heart, because what is for you, and sometimes we can block what's for us because of what we have things in our lives, even if it's cherished family things, right? I'm talking to a neighbor. He built a car and he's like, I'm not, that car can be sold, right? That car can be sold. I'll tell you, I want everyone that's listening to me to to prepare, to receive, and to prepare to understand that as we shift our mind, not even just renewing it, because to renew it, right, you might have to be making space, making things open. But I'm here to tell you there's something you already know. You heard Bishop say that. There's something that you already know. There's something you already know. And now it's time to tap in, to elevate into our higher states of awareness and higher states of consciousness, right? The God particle. People always they talk about, whenever you talk about the God self, or you talk about the the actual self-actualization or the self, they think that you're talking about the physical self. They think that you're being selfish and just talking about the me. But ultimately, you're talking about the we, you're talking about the us, you're talking about the oneness, right? Let's deep dive for a minute here and let's investigate. I love to use I love to use videos, as you guys know, and I love to use videos of things that are kind of like proven models. Understand? Or things coming from I love some science being involved. Um, because it just adds a little bit of confirmation, additional confirmation. So this is something that you won't normally hear. I don't know how long we'll listen to this, but we need to listen to a little bit of it, because this is coming from a medical perspective, right? This is not just coming from all the esoterical talk. You guys know what I'm talking. All the, you know, the talk that is like cool as we talk about it. But now we're going to be talking about the implementations, and we're going to look at some things coming from some people that have some experience, right? Let's deep dive into this.
And I recently had a patient that came to me saying, Doc, I cannot find a way out of my depression. I have tried everything, but nothing has worked. And this patient had been stuck for years, perseverative and ruminative loops of the past, which we call depression, brought upon by traumatic experiences from childhood. And I asked, when you say you've tried everything, do you mean you've tried other states of consciousness or everything within the same frame of consciousness? They looked at me like I had 2 or 3 different heads and said, what are you talking about, doctor? And that's what I'm going to tell you about, the 5 states of consciousness, one of which brought incredible healing to this particular patient in just a number of weeks after years of being stuck and not having any light at the end of the tunnel. Let's get started with number 1, and that's the one altered state of consciousness that everyone has experienced if you're watching me right now, and that's REM sleep. That's the stage of sleep when you have dreams. Now, this is really powerful because it sets the stage for the other 4 altered states of consciousness, none of which are as universally experienced. But you're going to see the theme across these 5, and they all base from what dreams can do for you in terms of their healing potential. But let's go to number 2, and that's the meditative state. Whether you're an amateur meditator or you've been up in the Himalayas and you've seen really, Jedi Zen-like, that's my favorite word, right? Jedi Zen-like monks who've achieved these deep states of meditation where their brain waves are actually changing based on where they're at. This can have profound changes in the body that we're going to talk about, and it's going to dovetail with the other states of consciousness. And these are going to be experienced in fewer people as we move along. But I'm going to share with you the thread of how they can help you heal in ways that SSRIs and other antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications rarely can address, especially not the root cause of. Since I'm in an operating room, number 3 is going to be anesthesia and what that does to your state of consciousness. That is fundamentally, when you put electrodes in the brain to actually examine what happens, the brain, a completely different state of consciousness. It's actually not sleep, even though I tell patients every day that we're going to go to sleep in the operating room, like this real life operating room where we're doing surgeries in not too long ago. That altered state of consciousness is actually a medical coma. And now you're probably wondering, how on earth do you heal when you're in a coma? We'll get to that, but I got to finish with the other 2 states. The 4th state is the psychedelic experience, including ketamine. Not technically a psychedelic in some ways, but nonetheless, that brings about an altered state of consciousness that can provide profound healing, like the other states when used in a particular setting. And then number 5, I want to give you a shout out if you're there. This is live, of course, unscripted. I'm going to give you a shout out if you can even guess what the 5th altered state of consciousness is that I have seen perhaps some of the most profound healing.
What you guys think? Number 5, the 5th state, right? The 5th state. This is coming from a surgeon. We're going to see another surgeon here this evening too. This is coming from a surgeon. Realm, altered states of consciousness. The not universal state, the universal state of consciousness that always, which is meditation. We'll get deeper into this. Then you got the SSRIs, the SSRIs. Then we got the anesthesia, right? Medical coma. I've been really working on this writing. And we have the psychedelic experience, but let's go ahead. We're going to see what he has to say about this 5th state of consciousness. Here we go.
Occur through. I'm watching the comments. If you know, please let me know. And I really want to see what others. I see Linda already talking about LSD. Well, I already mentioned that. REM sleep, I mentioned that as well. Trance meditation, Bumblebee, I mentioned that one as well. Being positive, Raymond, is absolutely powerful. It's not necessarily one of the altered states of consciousness that I'm going to share with you. Mindfulness, Helios, we talked about that one already.
Meditation.
And Linda, nothing to be sorry about. Your guess was very good and actually was correct. Out-of-body experience, says Linda. Well, in some ways, yes, but specifically, there is one type of experience that can be had.
Spiritual.
That takes us into,
it's got to be.
I call it a different state of consciousness. It's different than the other 4 I mentioned. Near-death experiences, well, we're getting kind of closer. Hypnotic states, we talked about the hypnosis of chemical induction like anesthesia and meditation.
This is
Steve
exciting.
for him mentions prayer. Absolutely. I kind of lump that in with the meditation.
Meditation.
I'm going to tell you, number 5 is the hardest one to grasp, but is one that perhaps has some of the most profound healing. And that is what happens to the brain in someone who has recovered from an addiction, whether it's a chemical addiction, shopping, gambling, sex, or if it's addiction to negative self-thoughts that keep us stuck for months or years. Once again, that stuckness, if it's of the past, we call it depression. Of the future, we call it anxiety. And when I have a patient who has recovered from that, and the withdrawals are very real, whether it's depression or whether it's fentanyl, that state of consciousness, when someone is actively struggling through the withdrawal of using something, bears resemblance with the other 4. So what do these 5 have in common? REM sleep, meditative experiences, psychedelics, anesthesia, and the withdrawal state. All 5 of them combine 3 elements. 1 is the loss of control. 2 is the incredible neuroplasticity that allows for self-discovery in ways typically never thought of before. And number 3 is the risk of harm. None of these come free. They all have a risk of harm. And that's why it's not just something to go and try ketamine. You need to do it in a safe experience. Same with LSD. Even in some deep meditative states, people can get lost.
Mhm.
And as you know, I am an anesthesiologist and an integrated medicine specialist. I have a ketamine clinic. And I'm very, very careful to make sure that when someone is struggling to heal, we support them through a ketamine experience to provide that self-discovery that comes about with the loss of control. That in the case of the patient I mentioned at the very beginning, transformed years of suffering within a matter of weeks. How is that possible? How do these 3 or these 5 altered states of consciousness change your brain in a way that no medication can? Well, before I share that, I just want to say that if you appreciate me coming in here after a long time in the operating room, I really appreciate if you hit that like button and share what you've learned with others. Your support helps me do this more often. And as you know, I do have my exclusive access for our private Zoom sessions where you can ask your questions privately of me. I will answer as many questions as I can in our public stream today, but in that private Zoom, we have a more personal setting and I can answer more of your questions. The link is below. Now, tell me, how can these 5 states of consciousness fundamentally heal us in ways that other pharmaceuticals can't? When we enter sleep, the dreamlike state, how much control do you have? When you're having a psychedelic trip, what happens to your control? Under anesthesia, your control. All 5 of these states are hallmarked by giving up control in some way, voluntarily, if you want them to be healing, typically. In the case of the addict, they need to begin their recovery stage by stopping using. No matter how much control that substance has had, part of this sometimes involves an acceptance of they've lost control over their body. Now, all 5 of these states involve giving up control, but what happens from the change in consciousness that happens when we enter the state willingly is that the brain can rapidly form new connections. We call this neuroplasticity.
Yes.
We can call it synaptogenesis, neurogenesis. They all refer to the same phenomena, and that is a rapid rate of learning that can help unlearn old habits. Whether it's ketamine, whether it's LSD, whether it's a deep meditative state, it's curious that when we give up control, we can actually gain new discoveries by virtue of exploring a new pathway. So when patients come to me severely depressed and there's no light over the horizon, even having a glimmer of an alternate way of seeing, which is what's afforded by any of these 5 experiences, can do what the SSRI fundamentally can't do. But I mentioned earlier that there's a risk that goes with this as well. What is the risk of learning something new about yourself? Maybe you think it's like, how could that go wrong? It sounds amazing. Well, the problem is that if one has an experience like this that's not guided, we have what's called the cautions of unearned wisdom. So when someone has a profound understanding, but they're not emotionally mature enough, they haven't had the right life experiences, etc., to put this into context, there is a risk of not actually being able to heal from that experience. I'll give you some examples. Personally, I couldn't connect with patients with PTSD until I had my own traumatic experience. And I'm like, oh, wow, that is maybe just a flavor of what some of my patients have experienced. I didn't know what medical gaslighting was until a close friend of mine, a doctor, gaslit myself and a family member multiple times in series. That is the maturity that you get. It's bitter and it hurts, but that is the experience that now lets your knowledge be turned into wisdom. I didn't know what anxiety was until I was a resident and experienced anxiety for the first time. Thank goodness I've healed from it. But that is when I was able to apply what various experiences I've had before and I've had since to actually help my patients to see them eye to eye. I didn't know what depression was until I saw a family member go through it and nearly lose their life. The unearned wisdom that can come with any one of these deep experiences can torpedo your self-healing. How many dreams have people had that have been absolutely life-changing? You read this in history. How many emperors have led civilizations based on what they saw in a dream? And how many people have hurt themselves based on a nightmare? How many people have had a healing psychedelic experience? And how many have had a bad trip? How many have had a meditative experience that fundamentally gave them a new view of themselves? It's changed their self-representation. But how many have also just gone on to go deeper and deeper in negative thought loops while they sit alone, trying so hard to focus? Well, the list goes on and on. With anesthesia, you've heard my other videos before where people can wake up with PTSD after surgery, and some patients can wake up with healing mindset after surgery. So the cautions of unearned wisdom are so real. And this is not a new phenomenon at all, but I see it a lot when people are being pushed psychedelics. And I do always caution that when one is looking for one of these altered states of consciousness to fundamentally unlock your healing through profound neuroplasticity, allowing you to see new possibilities that weren't accessible before, there are risks as well. And one needs to be mindful and not just follow a fad. But that being said, I so appreciate all of your comments here. I want to start answering your questions. Do remember that you can always.
All right. I hope that you guys I'm gonna tell you right now, where I go, you can review back what we've done, but take notes, because I promise you, I will go in places and we will visit things and do things. I promise you that it will be hard to get it somewhere else, because a lot of things are so focused on that one individual that you'd be hard pressed to get so much content and so many good things. Last week, we had David Williamson, who had a near-death experience. I'm not sure if you remember, but there was one thing, and what this anesthesiologist was speaking on this evening, or just now, of course, was 5 states of consciousness that he recognizes and realizes and understands. And the thing about consciousness, I don't know of a person that can understand states of consciousness more than, not even who we will visit, a neurologist. A neurologist's job is to understand and study the brain. Some of them can be, of course, surgeons, and then definitely not psychologists, which can be phenomenal, but they do a lot of research in understanding and connecting to states of consciousness, right? But an anesthesiologist's job is to be your consciousness, in a sense, by using data that they're getting on what your body is doing. what the heart is doing, what the breathing is doing, what the oxygen levels are. I mean, they're getting a significant amount of data on your body and brain, and they have to use their understanding of consciousness because they're taking you out in a medical sense of consciousness, right? The anesthesia talked about having a trip, right? Going to sleep. When I begin this, and the thing of reason why I said sleep, because one of the things that I would like for you guys to do is I want you to circle the things that you really have control of more than anything. You have control over sleep and you have control over meditation. You have to do those things every day. You're not tripping out on ayahuasca every day or doing mushrooms or even doing cannabis, right? Or he was talking about ketamine. Of course, now we're getting involved. Now they're getting involved where they understanding these altered states of consciousness, right? But what happens and how we can fix people. Yes, getting into the subconscious mind to program. It is very possible that you can get into someone's subconscious mind of seeing where they are and they're racist, if you will. Let's just go that deep. And then all of a sudden you can know that there's something there that has been written in the mind, that's written and it's a program. How would this person say, I want to get this program out? I want to begin to move from this program. And you have to get into the subconscious mind and the altered states of consciousness. Now, we have the ability. We're getting out of the woo-woo, folks. All the spiritual stuff that you've done in church and all the spiritual stuff that you even done with the crystals and all that, great. But now let's get into a moment and in touch with the fact that now we can get into we can begin to calculate these things and begin to not just manifest from a standpoint of like, you know, genie in the bottle. Oh, yeah, it happened. But we could put ourselves into an altered state of consciousness. And we are still getting into some very deep things that the human being has not been able to pinpoint precisely to make change in the life. Understand, are you following? Okay. Altered states of consciousness. I did not know. This blew me away when he said unearned wisdom, but he also talks about our experience. One of the things in psychology that I want you to know, and we do it all the time, stop going around and putting your ideal of what life is and what you would do if you were somebody else. If I was that person, why don't this person, right? We're constantly going and we're taking our frame of reference and everything we've experienced and we're projecting it onto the world. And I'm here to tell you, when we get into this expanded consciousness, the expanding side of consciousness is when we are seeing and know that we are expanding as humans. But I'm here to tell you, as you go into, as we go from as they like to say, the 3D and the 4D and the 5D and all that, you know what I mean? It's cliche to me in a way. I get it, and sometimes the talk is cool. But let's look at this from the standpoint from a somewhat of a scientific level of being able to replicate this into our lives and be able to recognize and realize and upgrade the human species. That's what we're doing. The human species is being upgraded. All the stuff that you see, all the destruction, right? These things that Gaza, all that is, and I promise you, what's happening in Gaza, in Israel, a lot of it has to do with the cycle, right? The cycle of humanness. there is a lot of epigenetics, and there are a lot of things that has to do with the human, not just awareness, but the human existence. What happened to me, I'm gonna do to someone else, and I'm going to justify it by any means necessary, based on the fact that I'm doing something that has more to do with the genes. There was something that was said um, last week. If you haven't watched it, the oppressed become. Look at that. Look at that. Let's see. The oppressed becomes the oppressor. And you know what that is? It's like this lady. It's like this lady, Nikki Haley, or whatever her name is. And it's supposedly it's a thing in the military, but she wrote on the bomb. She wrote some specific words on the bomb to the enemy that she would have, right? She has America, Israel, heart, and she wrote some specific word that said, get them or something like that. And what level or state of consciousness that you must be in to say that I'm justifying even killing my enemy? I'm not saying anything regarding me being in the position that a person that is in that position must take. That person has to take whatever they have to take accordingly. So if I'm in that position, I'm in the state of Oklahoma, right? And in the state of Oklahoma, there are guns everywhere because it's the state of Oklahoma and the way they operate, right? And I grew up in Kansas, so I grew up with rifles and things above my bed, hunting and country, right? But there's a state of consciousness that you have to be in to actually ride on a bomb, even if it's for your enemy, versus just saying, you know what, this is what they have to do. And I don't want to be in that state of consciousness that says, I'm going to get them because you got me. Because you don't realize that that's a cycle. That's a cycle. That's all that is. And we have to raise our state of consciousness, raise our state of awareness. Because I don't have to get you like this. First thing America will do to get you is they're going to cut off your money. And after they cut off your money, they can begin to, and what's happening in America as we fight the war we're in is they're getting us by knowledge. China, Russia, and everyone else that can't necessarily beat us and come to blows with knuckles. Come on, it's China. The art of war, you don't understand? The art of war will use what you love to come and get you. States of consciousness. You have no idea. So if we don't get an understanding in this generation, in this era, there's another era that's coming, and they're going to get it. I promise you. It always happens. We talked about this. Do you guys remember this? He was talking about altered states of consciousness. Remember David talking about the default mode network? I don't know if you remember it, but the default mode network, right? Let's look at that. It's a part of the brain, a large brain network, primarily composed of the dorsal, blah, blah, blah. We want to get past all that. It's to being active when a person is not focused on the outside world, and the brain is at a where we at a wakeful rest, such as daydreaming, mind wandering, right? In short, the default mode network was originally noticed for deactivating the central goal-oriented task and was sometimes referred to as the task negative network, right? There's things that this is just, I don't want to get too deep. This is just letting you know, right? As he was speaking, as the doc was speaking, the anesthesiologist, as he was speaking, He was talking about the biggest thing he was talking about to me was the fifth idea, right? Essentially, the depression or negativity, right? Did any of y'all get that? I'm looking here on the side. Anyone get, what did you guys get out of that last state? That last state of consciousness. I'm looking here right now. Hey, we in this all together. Your own psychological design. Come on now. Where you at, Miss Dorothy? I'm looking here. Let's let's review this.
Of exploring a new pathway. So when patients come to me severely depressed, and there's no light over the horizon, even having a glimmer of an alternate way of seeing, which is what's afforded by any of these 5 experiences, can do what the SSRI fundamentally can't do. But I mentioned earlier that there's a risk that goes with this as well. What is the risk of learning something new about yourself? Maybe you think it's like, how could that go wrong? It sounds amazing. Well, the problem is that if one has an experience like this that's not guided, we have what's called the cautions of unearned wisdom.
That's beautiful. So a lot of it has to do with the self. We call it the higher self. Right? Oh, I see you, Miss Dorothy. It has a lot to do with the higher self, right? And it's also the as you go through the process of introspection, you go through the process. Sometimes people use altered states, like they talk about psychological. I'm sorry, they talk about trips, right? So they're using calculated medical. So when people do ayahuasca or when people they trip on different things for the purposes of introspection, right? Cautions of unearned wisdom. I see you, Miss Deidre. That is one thing that can happen as you are going through this state of consciousness. Follow me. Is the religious experience sleep, a trip, anesthesia, meditation, right? New perspectives. I like that, Miss Rose. So, what happens to the state of who you are and can happen to the state of who you are in a religious experience? You can't prove that people are going crazy because of it. You know that war I was just talking about? If you go through all these states of consciousness, letting go of control, how does religion play a role in your state of consciousness? Just let that sit with you. Religion is about control. Religion is about control. What does the government and what does people across the entire world, what we can suffer from or deal with and not be able to talk about the state of consciousness as we with people's mind, gaslighting. Anybody, wouldn't you say religion is one of the number one things at a state of consciousness that can have you in a meditative state, right? Can mess with your dreams and when you go to sleep, right? It's a wonder that they don't want you to deal with any tripping out. But then he mentioned and talked about SSRIs, a medical state of consciousness or unconsciousness, chemically induced, is guided, right? It's guided from the time you enter into it, and they have protocols until you leave. Look at this, guys. Look what Miss Dorothy says. She's doing a deep research right now on some of these things. It can cause OCD. I'm only really wanting to really let you know that if you listen into this, what it is possibly that you escaped or escaping or what you are confronting. It's much deeper. Healing from that is much deeper than you can ever imagine. It's much deeper than what you can ever imagine. So the people that are in that space right now, right? The people that are in their space are cognitively, the cognitive dissonance. It is such a fabric of our being, and it's in such a space that it's everywhere and been everywhere. It's kind of like I think David, was it that he said he never had shingles and then start seeing the shingles commercials and then ended up with shingles. Look at this. Look at what let's post this real quick. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mrs. Let's see. Miss Deidre. I will never forget when I left church. A deacon said, "I understand you have to leave to survive." Wow. Wow, 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 wow. That's deep, guys. That is so deep. And Mrs. Rose, who was in the Mormon church, who really used a lot of psychology. And the thing about it is, folks, there is not one pastor that I can tell you that has any idea about what this physician is talking about. No idea. Most of them use it. Some of them may abuse it, but they're all part of the system. Physically, mentally, they're part of it. Unless you've been there and left, it's so hard for people to try to understand what the cognitive dissonance is truly like, because of the fact that it is an altered state of consciousness. That's why we call it CPTSD. It's complex. It's complex. You think the thing about a person being in the military, thank you for all the services, especially you, Miss Dorothy. The thing about being in the military and you go through some specific thing, the thing about you going through that, we can almost specifically know you did this, went through this, and experienced this, and we got this as an output. right? And they just discovered this, you know, over the last 40 years. But when you look at religion and what it does, it's way far deeper. Religion's like sugar. You know anything about sugar? Glucose, right? It's not just sugar. Sugar turns to glucose. Bread turns into a form of a sugar when we eat it because it turns into glucose. Glucose is something that the body uses. The whole sugar industry manipulated that many, 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 many years ago, and they start coming for fat. And the brain is nothing but fat, cholesterol, omega-3 fatty acids, good for your brain, right? MCT oil, I'll get deep on y'all and I'll start getting into my medical stuff, right? The body, the brain. I was listening to something today and it talked about how the human being began to eat. And they're talking about 10,000 years ago, 15,000 years ago, when the human begins to, or even longer, when the human begins to eat because of the brain needs more, right? The brain has changed. That's what reason why you have Homo sapien sapien. The brain has changed over the course of the existence of the human being. Is it not changing? The only reason why religion is not working is because we're changing. We're expanding, right? We're expanding because it's already expanded. It's already expanding. It's there's no time in the space. There's no time necessarily in the quantum. We're not just getting wiser and smarter in terms of just book knowledge. We're able to now once we realize God eternal within the body, the DNA has so much already stored. We can only pull so much within our DNA, right? It is now I beginning to feel and understand. We're going to have a guy by the name of the 27th, Caesar, on the 27th of June. Guys, we're going to have, this is going to be mind blowing. But we have a guy, he lives in Canada. But there's a young man who is from he lives in Canada, born in Cameroon, and what was it? And he was raised in Paris. He's African, but he has a deep study on Black religious trauma. But he's world renowned for his talk. He was just in the UN. And so he's able to speak on religion from a global perspective. He's also able to speak on it from not just colonization, but he's able to speak on it from an epigenetic space. And so he in some of the research, he's discovered that this is cool, but he discovered that a a European Jew male can be afraid of a German Shepherd based on epigenetics, changing of the genes. They could be afraid just because it's within the gene, right? The DNA, that you can have something that it makes it easier to tilt. Religion, this is my hypotheses. I'm going deep for you, but I have a hypothesis. You can have the hardest of the hardest guy, never been to a church, excuse me, and specifically Black, maybe from the South. it is possible that you can introduce them to religion, Christianity specifically, um, religion, and eventually in their life they will be able to accept or want to receive that because they've been predisposed to it throughout their whole life, even though they rejected it. And then in your history, Caesar has it where he can show you where there was a white male that would be in the room of these Africans reading the Bible and expressing themselves with African spirituality, but making sure they're focusing on um, the Bible and the way they want it done. That happened in the 1700s, right? So you wonder why it's so prevalent, so big, why people want to reject you if you decide to say something different. Yeah, that's John. He was doing his religious. Well, I'll definitely have him. He's talking about the religious trauma training, right? Absolutely. He's doing a certification in religious trauma, and one of the things they covered with this guy was Black religious trauma and how very specific it is. But it can go as deep as an individual being not just locked into this from a nurture, but also part of the nature. So it's a lot that a person may be, what would I say, dealing with. I'm gonna go ahead and post this in the chat. If anybody wants to follow more about that last video I shown, that I just posted that in the chat. I got this next one here. This is the latest that I'm into right now, and we're going to visit this for a while because I've talked about what I've talked about. The altered states of consciousness, right? Sleep is being really important. Meditation is really important. The other two are a whole nother conversation. Once I get all my private stuff going, we can get deeper into the uh, psychological, psychedelical. I can even talk about food as psychedelical, right? And how those things help and what to do and so on and so forth. We would get a little deeper into those experiences, but unearned wisdom, right? And realizing and understanding as we're talking about this, and as you do your sleep and as you do your meditation, understanding that is going to help, right? Unfold. If we don't, here's Miss Dorothy. Let's read this right here. If we don't understand the depths of religious trauma, we are not going to survive psychologically. That is Dr. Dorothy. She don't post all that. But it just lets you, I'm sorry. We got it going on over here. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody in this fam that is with us right now, 20 or so people, like we got it going on over here. But she's talking about that's what it is as a species. I believe and I know that we will. That's why I'm here. That's why you here. And that's why us as a small collective group, we are all here. Right? Is because we're elevating ourselves and then we're going to output this into the ethers. Right? It's not that you don't even have to necessarily look at quote unquote winning somebody. As you elevate your energy, as you elevate who you are, as you connect to your higher self, as you begin to understand elements of what you're doing when you go to sleep and making those practices a little bit more sacred, letting things go, as you look at getting better at doing meditation, right? Doing collective meditation. As you get better at these things for you, your energy and vibration, right? It's changing. And things around you are going to change. That is true manifestation, right? That's true manifestation, because what happens is all of a sudden you might even have the actions that causes the manifestations to unfold. Meaning, when we look at manifestation, are things that may happen that you didn't even have the true intent for those things to happen, and it just was like, well, I don't know where that came from, but as you get better and you get good at it, there's a thing that you expect. Here's a good one. This is 10 minutes. We may not listen to it all. This is Dr. James Doty, who has a new book out that's called Magic Manifestation, or Manifestation Magic, or something like that, but he's an actual surgeon. Okay. And so it's easy for you to go out and search and get the Eckhart Tolle's, which are good. And you can go get the, I love the Joe. He's still more on the science versus Eckhart Tolle, but the Neil Donald Walsh and the Michael Beckwiths, I love those guys. Those guys bring some great spiritual knowledge. But one of the things that I realize, and some people try to tag on and be like, those are new age principles, or maybe they call it new age. They don't even say new age principles. And the thing is some of those principles come from the metaphysical space, right? The thinking of our ability as human beings to think the thought that we thought and be the person and witnessing that thought, asking questions about who we are and why we're here, but then actually moving in a space of understanding and wanting to connect to that higher self, knowing that is calling you. Something is calling you. Something is calling us as we begin to shake off these things that have been brought onto us for centuries. So when we look at religious trauma, we're not shaking off just us. You're not just shaking off yourself. You're shaking off centuries that is ingrained in the structure of our society, and also ingrained in the structure of who we are. But ingenuity, elasticity, right? This default mode network. I promise you, as you go through this, because I'm just saying words that are already inside you. These people are saying words that are already inside you. The way I look at expanding is, you know what? The way I look at us and how we expand, I don't know if they still do it. I think they do. It's cheaper for them to make a Tesla, and it's cheaper for them to integrate all the components all together, right? Boom. So this one Tesla, for the most part, will have everything that it needs to do other things. Because if you mass produce that and you only need it to go out one way, it's much cheaper and affordable. No, it's much better financially than to say, I want to give this one a particular upgrade and this one a particular upgrade, and I have to go make them all different. So are they expanding that Tesla when they send the code to unlock what's already there? Everything that's in your life, God has already placed the genius inside you. The code is already inside you. It's not that it has to just expand. All it needs is just uncovered and unlocked. Pow. It just needs unlocked. That's it. Just unlocking what's already inside you. Self healing is already inside you. Because once you let go of dying, once you let it go, and all of us can struggle with it, but once we can let it go, I'm letting it go, I'm done. So now why am I here? Let me live out for that, for this time or for this era. Human life is just a minuscule of the existence of who we are. So you have no major need to worry about certain actions that are going on. Not saying that we do nothing, but just understanding this thing is all repeating in 100 years, and 100 years in the totality of just the last 1,000 years, the last 2,000 years. So what are we here and what are we doing? Let's unlock our potential beyond belief. Dr. James Doty, talk to us.
Okay. Right?
Mhm.
Most of us do it very unofficially,
Right.
right? You know, because everybody sits and says, I want X, Y, or Z, or I wish for this to happen. I think there are techniques you can use that can maximize the potential for you manifesting your intentions.
Mm.
So learning how the brain works and how those techniques work maximize that. So you go, it's like an athlete, as you well know, if you've never been taught something, you try it for the first time, you sort of stumble through it.
Yeah.
Frankly, most people stumble through life, right? And then as you practice it or you learn from people who, have the knowledge, then you perfect it. And then you understand if you want to say, the neuroscience underpinnings of it and how you make these, what we call cognitive brain networks, interact. And then you've taken it from sort of, well, it might happen. I thought about it too. There's a high likelihood it will happen.
How people talk about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. What is at play when we start to think about things we want to manifest and actually actualizing them in the physical material world? Is it the conscious mind or the subconscious mind that is driving this manifestation process?
Well, that's an excellent question. So the key is, how do you get information which sticks into your subconscious? So just saying, I want this, it may or may not work, because again, we're also distracted by all sorts of stuff. As an example, we have about 10 million bits of information coming in through our sensory organs every second.
10 million?
Million, yes.
Wow.
And we're only able to process on a conscious level 50 to 100. Okay, so now most of that goes to maintaining homeostasis, functioning of our body systems on an unconscious level. But we have actually access to our subconscious level, and you can learn that through different techniques and then utilize those to maximize the input. And so when I say you have 50 to 100 bits, you can use part of that to consciously embed your intention if you know how to do that.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. And as a brain surgeon and a neuroscientist yourself, what did you learn through working on physical brains, the matter, as well as neuroscience, in terms of, I guess, creating this for your life, more harmonious, abundant life, studying both the brain and the mind?
Well, in some ways, I mean, being a neurosurgeon's a physical task, and it's not as if there are little signs on the brain that tell you where everything is.
Mhm.
Now, certainly we know from anatomy generally where things are, but you have to remember, I mean, there's a subset of people who, we talk about our speech center being on the left side, but there's a subset of people that's on the right side.
Really?
Yes.
How do you know that?
You don't, unless there's something that interferes with it
Oh,
or you specifically test for it. So in general, the anatomy is pretty consistent. But it's like looking at somebody, you're tall, there's a short person, and that's the way the brain works. Not everyone is wired the same way or has everything in the exact spot. And in fact, as an example, let's say you play the violin, the homunculus, which is both the sensory and motor area that has different representations of body parts. If you're a violinist, the area associated with your hand or hands get dramatically increased in size compared to other parts of your brain.
Interesting.
And in fact, the same is true with certain types of meditation practices, right? So you can have a profound effect on your brain, physical brain, and certainly you have power over your mind. And in some ways, that's what we're talking about is, and this goes back, you mentioned the law of attraction, all is in the mind. And I think, in fact, some of the things you talk about, you understand that when you are disciplined and can get access, you can make things happen.
Yes.
And whether it's a physical challenge or a mental challenge, but you have to understand how to get access.
So how do we get access?
I'm not going to tell you until you buy the book.
Exactly. Well, one of the things you talk about in the book is this phenomenon of vibration. And, it's interesting because there's brain waves, but there's also heart energy or vibration as well. And I think you mentioned about how the heart vibration is actually, 10 or 50 times more powerful than the brain waves, I think, correct?
Yeah, actually, you can measure the vibrational energy from the heart at 5 or 6 feet away. And, this is where it gets confusing between the woo-woo and the reality, because a lot of people will wrap all sorts of other baggage onto that. But it's true. And the interesting thing about that, though, is, and I'm sure you appreciated it, you can meet people who have an energy about them and a presence about them, and it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And typically, these are people who are non-judgmental, accepting, open, and respect who you are as a person. They don't look down at you, and you want to be around those people. And those people emit this very positive energy.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And so it's interesting also because, as an example, if you have a group of women who live together, over a period of months, their menstrual cycles will match.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, it's the nature of this vibrational energy, and I talk about it in the book. And in fact, if you took a metronome, like had 5 or 6 metronomes lined up and watched them, and they're on the same table vibrating, they will all get in sync over a period of time. And so this idea of vibration has actually an influence on things.
On other things.
Yeah.
So if I'm acting chaotic and I'm constantly in the state of chaos, if I'm around someone else, I may influence them to create that type of vibration as well. Or vice versa, they might influence me if they're calmer for me to get calm.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact,
which one wins?
That's a good question. I mean, it depends on how powerful that energy is. And that energy can be very powerful, negative or positive.
Wow.
And of course, I think you would agree, most people try to avoid being around negative people.
Of course.
There's a saying that, what do they call them? Energy eaters. I think,
Yes.
You're around them. It's like, in fact, I got called by a woman the other day, and I just dread getting a call from her ever, because it always turns into a drama about her. And you sit there and it's just over and over again. And it's sad because, and we can talk about this more, all of us carry baggage from our childhoods, right?
Yes.
And until you are aware that the baggage you carry has an influence on every decision you make, every relationship you have, you can't change. As an example, I'm sure you've seen situations where individuals repeatedly pick an abusive partner.
Yes.
Over and over again. And I don't understand why this happens to me, because you have created that energy that allows that to happen. And I'm not blaming, I'm just saying that this is truth. So if you never understood, as an example, that while when I was a kid, I had an abusive father, and he would be mean to me or hurt me. The problem is, that becomes familiar to you, and even though it's painful and hurts you, it is something that's associated with a love figure,
Interesting.
and it's really very sad, actually.
I mean, a lot of our programming and conditioning sounds like it is wired in us at a very young age. And we have been conditioned by 7, 8, 9, 10 to have a set of beliefs, way of thinking, and a way of feeling around our environment and relationships. And then we live with it for 10, 20, 30 years until we start to become aware of it. Hopefully sooner, but we kind of repeat these patterns until there's a breakdown or there's a sadness or a breakup or something that gets us to wake up. How hard is it to change our belief systems that have been wired in us for decades?
Well, it's very hard. I mean, you see it every day. You see people who become addicted to alcohol and drugs. And, it's not because they want to live that life. It's because they're in such pain from the baggage they carry and they have no way out.
That's the coping mechanism.
Yes.
The relief.
Yes. And so it's very sad. And as you pointed out, until there is a profound, painful event that gets their attention, many of them won't change.
All right. That's a profound, I'm sure you guys heard that, a profound situation. Let me see. I need to figure out how to get this thing turned off. Sorry. A profound incident, right? A profound incident. One of the things I wanted you to get out and just to understand from his perspective, just that guy, first of all, Dr. James Doty, it's mind magic. And one of the things that it's the latest book that I'm in, because I do quite a few. I mean, heck, I can have I do a lot of books. His first book was called Into the Magic Shop. So he went into a magic shop when he was 12, and the lady gave him some principles, right? And it was a magic shop, so it was probably more metaphysical and things of that nature. Some people would get involved. Some people would say whether it's New Age or whatever. Long story short, the man went to he knew what he wanted when he was 12, and he began to write those things down. And he wanted to be a doctor. He manifested his way through medical school. He wasn't even supposed to be in that school. He didn't even have the grades. He was raised dirt poor, and he has a horrific life. Like, if you listen to the story of his life about his parents and abuse and everything else. And long story short, he talks about going into the magic shop. The lady tells him what to do. He manifests his way through medical school, through doing the necessary things to be a surgeon, which he was already brilliant, but he lost it all. He built up until he had multiple companies and had I think $80 million company, and lost it during the 2000 bubble, and that's in the mind magic. But he really gives more practical advice and understanding on manifestation and understanding, like, how, I'm not sure if you heard it, but he gave practical advice on understanding meditation practices. And see, a lot of times we don't get that there are certain levels to this, right? There's certain connections that we have as you go through the shadow work, and as you go through different things, as you go through carrying that baggage from childhood. Anybody in that hear that part where you're carrying that baggage from childhood until you can see it? Oh, I see it. You can have all sorts of different things, but there's a lot we're carrying. And he also talked about measuring the heart and the vibration from the heart versus the brain, right? And and as you get deeper into it, you'll understand as you go back into what we learned earlier about sleep. Remember, I first started this off, we were talking about sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things a person can do. Quality and good sleep is even more important. And guess what? Quality and good sleep is something. So, between your diet, between exercising, and between what do you do to prepare to do it, I used to tell Bishop every once in a while his little churchy, what would I say, his his little thing he would do back in the day, um, he might have a glass of red wine before bed, you know. I know what it was doing to him, but also alcohol is probably not the best thing to do before you go to sleep, because of what it does. But it was fun. It was cute actually, because he was like, "Oh, just give me a little glass, little glass of wine." He cracked me up. Oh, he to do that before bed, right? And so my thing is there are things that you can do before bed. And some people, when he talks about the trip or the chemical, and some people will use chemicals, you know, Ambien. Um, some people will use. My wife uses low doses of tetrahydrocannabinol, which is THC, delta 9 from the hemp variety, 2.5 milligrams, along with um, CBD, cannabidiol, and CBN, which is another cannabinoid from the cannabis plant. That is 111 cannabinoids. I've had a conversation. He's 90 years old with the guy that discovered the main two cannabinoids in the cannabis plant, THC and CBD. Delta CBD, I'm sorry. And THC was discovered in what we call as the marijuana variety, which was named, all of it is cannabis sativa, but they separated it and named one marijuana or marijuana, and the other one remained hemp. And that has a whole entire history between multiple companies, paper companies and governments and everything else that was involved with that. And the thing is though different than the alternative medicine actually was the main line of medicine. Medicine was apothecary, right? Medicine was using plants and nature before pharmaceutical, and pharmaceutical began to dial in, right? It began to dial in antidepressants, depression, right? Now the pharmaceuticals can't do what this doctor was talking about, which they're using um, 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 uh, ketamine and psilocybin, which is mushrooms, and sooner or later they'll probably get involved in some DMT and LSD. Those things was uncontrolled, um, uncontrolled. A lot of anything can be dangerous, but um, the last rabbit I'll chase on you guys, just so that you have this understanding of knowledge, and it's like the Bill Gates and who else? Bill Gates, who is Microsoft, developing Windows, but not the personal computer itself. Steve Jobs developed the Macintosh computer, and there's another fellow that I've been studying. I might mention him later on next month, and he's the developer of the microchip. But now he is a consciousness based scientist, a spiritual consciousness scientist. He was already spiritual pretty much before creating the microchip. And he talks about AI and how people think that we can create consciousness. And he's like, I'm sorry, don't even be worried about it. I created the microchip. and he now is into spirituality. Dr. Fagan or Fagin or something, Faggin. He's Italian. If you ever want to look him up, I'll bring it up later. But hopefully, what you guys are getting here this evening is an understanding, right? The self healing and manifesting this healing in our life can simply begin with tonight. It begins tonight. It begins now in this moment with you understanding and realizing and connecting to higher self. We take a deep breath. Out of everything that we've heard and listened to this evening, breathing deep in, spirit, S-P-I-R-I-T. Sanskrit, breath. As you breathe in with intention, deep as you can, pulling from the sacrum. As we get into the chakras, right? You get into the pelvic muscles. The energy lies in that the spine has a cord that is running all the way down, connecting your whole entire body. As you just picture that, you have a cord that's running all the way through your body, connecting it all together. And the minute that you can connect to the fact that God is eternal. God is eternal. God is eternal in the body. Tap and tune in to the God self. It's already with you. It's all in you. You don't need more knowledge. You just need what's in you to be unlocked. Deep breath. As you pull that breath, pull it all up and you hold it. And I want you to hold your breath for as long as you can. And as you're holding it, your body will begin to fight you. And it will say, you must breathe, you must breathe, you must breathe. And you say, I know, but I want to push you to a limit. I want to push you to the limit to let you know that when I bring that breath in, you'll feel God moving through your veins. You'll feel the God self moving through your neurological system, all through your nerves. Your original creation is still here with you. Not only are you healing the self as we go into the space that it's already here and done in your body, but also we're elevating the energy. We're elevating the energy of who we are, unfolding what's already in us. And that heart vibration is going to attract the things, the people. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest who you are. Greatness is here, now. Religious traumas, we're going to let unfold now in just this one moment. All one, all one. Feel the presence of each one of you. Send in the energy. Send in energy of expanded awareness and consciousness in a place that is fighting. Healing is taking place in your body. Everything that comes around you will feel the vibration and the energy of the God within, vibrating out and raising all awareness around you. Letting it go. Push it all out. Every piece, push it all out. We don't even need to call on ancestors because they are already with us, within us, in the DNA. Everything that you and everything that they have experienced is locked inside of you just to make it this far on this planet. So you have centuries and centuries and centuries of learning in you. Even the ugly stuff. The divine essence of the soul, mind, and body from era to era to era to era. Whatever it is that we have experienced and gone through, I pull it into the subjection of this moment at this time, and all the souls that are being let go and freed from the body involuntarily at this moment. I collect you all up in spirit and hold you, honor you. As we raise our consciousness. As we come out of this, what I want, this is semantics, right? You can shake off within the nervous system, begin to shake off things, right? If you got to, you can stand up and move and wiggle and shake, right? There's energy, right, in your body. And you can shake these things off, right? Remember what he said about the heart, the vibration, and being able to measure the vibration and the energy from the heart. I'm sending mine out to you in the energy and the frequency, the quantum field. Blessings, blessings, and blessings to you and to yours on this Thursday evening. How you guys doing? Woo! I hope y'all fine. I hope you guys are doing lovely, and I hope you enjoyed this wonderful evening. That there was some planning involved, but I'm living this so every day that by the time I get to this moment and this point, it unfolds and I move out of the way and I let spirit be involved as much as I can. Thank you, Miss Dorothy. Thank you so much. We love you, appreciate you. Any last comments? Yes, sir, Mr. Christopher. You are already, listen, you are already taking that step, right? By showing up. So you don't have to go back. Realize that you already taken that step. It's already happening now, and you already have leveled up into the future. And now all you doing is walking it out. You're just walking it out. I talked about sleep. What are you doing to prepare for bed? What are you doing, right? Dedicating that space and that sacred time. Have a space in your house that's dedicated. Come on now. Sit on the edge of that bed before you go to bed. Look up some good content. I'll be sharing some content. Once you find these guys and these people, it'll start pouring in, okay? Everything that you need is already done. Now it's about asking the right questions. He said, I feel great. I do too, brother, every time. Miss Dorothy, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if anybody else is. I see there's still quite a few people in the rooms. If y'all got any last thing, Lisa, a shout out just to let us know. I see you, Miss Marie, brother John Thomas, Bruce Lipton. It's the environment that causes biological change. We love Dr. Bruce Lipton. Time to expand, brother. We are. I love you too, Miss Velma, so much. Love you dearly. Miss Stana, love you. Thank you so much. Miss Latanya, Mrs. and Mrs. Towns, you and your lovely wife. State of calm when we let go. Joy and peace. Thank you, Miss Towns. You're so awesome. Mrs. Teresa. Yes. And I did say Miss Velma. Thank you so much. I just heard someone had just sent the cash up. I'll just put it up there. You don't feel obligated, because we are working on some things that I will want you to be obligated, because it's all about transformation and change. I may do this teaching, but transformation and change, when we come together as a group, right? That's what's important. 100%. That was the Cash App, and that's the Vimeo. I got some things that I am sending out. Miss Deidre, I got you. You guys are completely amazing. I really enjoy and love having this moment and this time. And of course, 100%, I will be back. I will be back. I hear that's so sweet. It's beautiful to hear that. Because guess what? It's encouraging, but at the same time, it allows you and pushes a person to one, just to keep going, because there's value in what you learn in transformation and change. In the church, it's a little different, right? The church has this expectation. I give knowledge, and then you give accordingly about something. But my thing is, I'm really big. I've followed some of these principles of Cash App, posting it, but I'm really big into offering things of value, and you pay for those things, and those things make a difference in your life, right? But I appreciate you for everyone that has done that. I love you guys. If you want to, I'm on social media all the time. You know, you can DM me, and we can have we'll have a text conversation if we need to for a minute there. But I appreciate you. And I know on the East Coast it's 11:21 because it's 10:21 where I'm at. So, all right. Love you. Bye-bye.